Looking live at the Vatican and following a major breaking story this morning. The Vatican says Pope Francis has agreed to visit Canada. This is in response to an invitation from the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops. It appears he has taken up the offer. It is part of the process of reconciliation for the decades of abuse and forced assimilation suffered by Indigenous children who were forced to attend residential schools, so many of them run by the Catholic Church. A statement from the Catholic Bishops of Canada says, in anticipation of the visit, a delegation of Indigenous survivors, elders, knowledge keepers, and youth will travel to the Vatican December the 17th to the 20th to speak with the Pope. Now, we'll get some more detail on this in just a second, but earlier this hour, we heard from Mark Miller, the brand new Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, the former Minister of Indigenous Services. He was speaking to reporters as he arrived at the first cabinet meeting of the new government, and this is what he said in reaction to the breaking news.
Obviously, I'm not a Catholic, but I think that for the Holy Father, in whom many of the faithful saw a lot of hope when he was installed, full and complete recognition of the harm caused to Indigenous peoples was at the top of the list of what they wanted to see him do in Canada, on the territory. I know there are mixed views, mixed perspectives on that, but in the grand scheme of what we call reconciliation, I think for Indigenous peoples, that full recognition of harm caused is something that is long waited for from the Holy Father himself.
So there is Mark Miller, again, Minister of Crown and Indigenous Relations, as he arrives at the cabinet meeting in Ottawa. We're looking again live at the Vatican, St. Peter's Square, which is the location for Megan Williams, live reporting on this breaking news. Megan, good to have you on this. It's going to be a huge story in Canada today, one would anticipate. What is the detail that we have about the invitation and what seems to be the acceptance from the Pope?
Well, Heather, you're right. It's a huge story. And it came this morning in a very brief announcement from the Vatican, just a few lines saying that the Canadian bishops had invited the Vatican to visit Canada, that the Pope had expressed his willingness. It wasn't even sort of an unequivocal, yes, the Pope is coming. That came later when the Catholic bishops released their statement, saying, in fact, that they were grateful that the Pope had accepted the invitation, and that the meeting that's taking place that you mentioned just before Christmas, December 17th to 20th, which was up until now seen as a possibility for the Pope to issue an apology then, despite the fact that there have been calls for him to come to Canada to apologize on behalf of the Catholic Church and its role in Indigenous schools. It was sort of expected that that might be the time when the Pope issues an apology. The bishop's statement says that that group will come December 17th to the 20th, and they'll meet with the Pope, but they'll discuss sort of logistics and timing as to when the papal visit will take place in Canada.
Well, we know, Megan, what a massive effort it is to organize an overseas papal visit. So, in terms of details and logistics and things, has there been any response from the Vatican at all?
Well, I spoke to the Vatican press person just after the news broke, and he really didn't know much about it. He knew very little about the visit before Christmas even, but he said that these sorts of papal visits take up to 6 months to plan. So I don't think that this is going to happen anytime soon. Certainly, obviously not before that delegation comes to Canada, here to Rome before Christmas. So it could be, as early as spring, or it could be later. The Vatican tends to announce these sorts of trips months in advance. It's also a very delicate trip, so there's going to be a lot of planning that goes into this trip. It's a sensitive trip. It's a trip that the Pope needs to show a lot of sensitivity to an issue that the Catholic Church in Canada has ignored for a very long time. It's only a month ago now that the Canadian bishops formally issued an apology on behalf of the Catholic Church for the schools.
Megan, thank you. I'm sure you'll be reporting on the network more through the day as we get further detail on this. But Megan Williams at the Vatican, right in St. Peter's Square, on the breaking news that Pope Francis has agreed to visit Canada to help with ongoing efforts at reconciliation with Indigenous peoples in this country.